Captain Midnight.
I like Minecraft. Well over a decade of fun, open-ended creativity, childhood memories for, at this point, an entire generation. Enter a Minecraft movie, an adaptation of Minecraft that the game's developer, Mojang Studios, and their bosses at Microsoft have been trying to get made for a decade. After several false starts, corporate reshuffling, and general development hell, the studio seems to have caught on to the 2020s approach to franchise filmmaking and brought on Jared Hess, the director of low-key comedies like Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre, to steer this ship into harbor. And the results probably won't shock you. I mean, the box office speaks for itself. Obviously, people really wanted to see a Minecraft movie. My unfortunate question, though, is, did it have to be this one? Now, before I get into it, I'll say we're well on the way to my completely arbitrary goal of 720k subscribers. Thank you so much if you have subscribed, and if not, now might be the time. And, click that bell too. A Minecraft movie follows a group of real-world outsiders who stumble into the world of Minecraft, known as the Overworld, through a portal created by a magical orb, which gets partially destroyed and locks them inside. These outsiders include Garrett, a former video game superstar and present loser, siblings Henry and Natalie, who just moved to town and are struggling to fit in, and Dawn, their realtor with about 14 other side gigs. Steve, the protagonist of the game, is another human who has lived in the overworld for years, before being held prisoner in the Nether, and he helps them find a replacement piece for the orb. But they're not the only ones after the orb, as the villain, who is the ruler of the Nether and overseer of Steve's captivity, wants it for herself to rule the overworld and end creativity once and for all. I think most of us had a pretty good idea of what this movie would boil down to from miles away, a series of uncanny interactions between the live-action cast in their Target commercial outfits and the animated NPCs of the game. A flimsy narrative shotgunning us through the game's most iconic locations, a visually flat showreel of references to the game with Jack Black soundboarding phrases like Flint and Steel or Chicken Jockey every time it does, just in case any reference is lost on us. Basically, something that resembles an advertisement for the game more than a story that simply takes place in the world of the game. And it's hard to undersell the caliber of references this movie relies on, because it's not just Minecraft references. Jack Black rehashes his viral Jimmy Fallon toy saxophone bit, Hess sprinkles in references to Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre by way of tater tots being a central prop, and a set piece involving Jack Black in a wrestling ring. And I will say, one of the few positives of this movie is how many of Hess's previous collaborators he brings in with him, besides Jack Black, like Jennifer Coolidge or Jermaine Clement in an unfortunately brief but no less appreciated cameo early on in the film. That said, it's a little sad watching this greatest hits compilation underpinning just such a sanitized corporate product. And I know a lot of people will love this, and that's fine, but what's worse for me is this thing is loaded with references to just general internet lingo. Opening with the line, "As a child, I yearned for the mines," communicates in the first 5 seconds of the movie how much low-hanging fruit we'll be dealing with for the next hour and a half. I think there's something emblematic about the fact that the factory job Natalie gets in this rural 2-bit town is that of a social media coordinator for the factory. Now, it is an absurd concept that feels very much in line with the director's other work, but I think it lends itself to a number of Chungus references and mentions of unaliving that are just littered throughout the film. Cheap tricks banking on memeability to generate word of mouth. In other words, the actual real-life tactics of a social media coordinator. So the film kind of gets carried through this series of references and some Lord of the Rings-esque detours. That's not a random comparison, by the way. Dawn explicitly likens the main kid, Henry, to Frodo on their quest. These detours consist of weightless action set pieces, and eventually the film stumbles into a generic skybeam end-of-the-world showdown. On top of really evoking Marvel, this is also visually reminiscent of Ready Player One's climax. I think that's an interesting comparison because wherever you land on that movie, there is at least some attempt at critique going on amid the saturation of 80s nostalgia. A Minecraft movie, on the other hand, seems more than happy to just be completely consumed by references. And to this point, there is an odd amount of reverence for 80s media, in particular in this movie, considering it's about a game that launched in 2012. Jason Momoa's Garrett, with his arcade shop, feels pretty out of place with Minecraft. I guess there are blocks in the game which borrow from 8-bit design, but that's about the closest connection I can really make. The resolution of the movie even involves the characters developing an in-world Minecraft video game that's just kind of Street Fighter with Minecraft skins. I get that 80s nostalgia still has legs as a selling point, but it has never felt more tacked on to a story than it did here. Now, I'll admit that a lot of the frustrations that one might have with this movie probably stem from the fact that it's a children's movie. Like, it's the kind of film that tries to telegraph to the audience that things are escalating by just having the actors yell louder and louder. It's not very clever, and I personally would argue that kids deserve better than this, but if nothing else, I'm sure many will walk away entertained. Some of these issues were probably inevitable for me, but I think there is a movie in here, as formulaic as it is, that works on some structural level. See, the real problem is Jason Momoa, the only member of the cast who has a producing credit, which is kind of odd after months of Jack Black advertising this film as a passion project of his, himself playing the game's flagship character after originally only being set to cameo. The rest of the marketing was not very forthcoming with the role that Momoa would play, despite his top billed status and front and center position on the poster. This question continues into the film's opening sequence, in which Steve narrates his life story and introduces us to the world of Minecraft, and seems to become the main subject of the film's narrative setup. Only after this prologue do we start to focus on Garrett, but even then, only for a little bit. We learn about his financial troubles and general self-unawareness, we see him acquire the orb, and then we go on to meet Henry and Natalie, only to spend more time with them than we did with Garrett. He just occupies a very awkward position throughout the movie. His role can best be described as a secondary antagonist when the movie consistently tries to convince us that he's the main character. Henry is the audience surrogate character, Steve is his mentor, and when they meet, a very clear, age-old character dynamic is established there. But Garrett is somehow intended to be both archetypes at once, and he ends up just watering Henry and Steve down. And the punk rock flavor that he brings to the table isn't even all that unique, considering Jack Black maintains his regular shtick all throughout the film. And while there is this light thread of competitiveness between the two men, it doesn't result in any real tension between the two. Rather, a handful of one-sided jealous quips from Garrett here and there, with any potential conflict getting immediately absorbed by the easygoing Steve. There's no arc of going from hating to liking each other, and they don't learn much from each other. Even when Garrett blackmails Steve, he doesn't seem particularly upset. They just mildly like each other throughout the whole story and then claim to be best friends at the end. The real tension in this mentor thread is between Henry and Garrett, but once again, Garrett's betrayal doesn't land with any weight because Henry still has Steve as a positive mentor, and the film just doesn't channel this effectively into tension between Steve and Garrett. Another consequence of Garrett's presence becomes apparent when the party splits up halfway through. Were Garrett out of the equation, there would be some symmetry to Henry splitting off with his mentor and Natalie splitting off with hers. Instead, with Garrett tipping the scales, it just feels like the girls were kind of arbitrarily written out of the movie for a bit, while the boys get to have fun going through the main plotline. This script is just all over the place. Henry's arc has a lot to do with overcoming the fear of being creative, externalized by the jetpack he designs. At the start of the film, it fails and destroys the factory, and at the end, he creates a successful jetpack, suggesting some growth and the ability to be creative in the real world without fear. Except when the jetpack fails initially, it's not because he's too scared of being creative or anything like that. It fails because some bullies sneak up behind his back and cut a cable, which he wasn't even aware of. The ending plays out like he's redesigned the jetpack through creative means, overcoming his anxiety. But his design or ability to design were never really the issue in the first place. It was just that the bullies were messing with him, so it doesn't really land as intended. Natalie struggles with the burden of having to grow up too fast and worrying about her ability to take care of Henry. We don't see much of the growing up too fast angle because the movie plays out over the course of like a day in the real world, but we do see a good amount of her losing track of Henry and freaking out. Now there are suggestions throughout of her gaining some combat ability in the overworld, and her resolution is that she opens up a self-defense club at the end. But the film never connects the dots by having her use her combat to save Henry in a meaningful way. I mean, she doesn't even save him in the film's climax. That's reserved for Garrett. The movie just seems so non-committal to any of these narrative through lines that it can't even commit to a joke in the mid-credits scene, in which Jennifer Coolidge and a villager, who have like a B-plot romance that never connects to the main plot, have somehow switched languages. They make the joke, he speaks in English and she speaks villager, and then they immediately go back to speaking their own languages. I promise I'm not trying to overanalyze a dumb joke in a children's movie, but the joke doesn't even stick to its own logic, and I think it's a perfect microcosm of how lazy the film is as a whole. There's also something disingenuous about the movie on just a conceptual level. The beauty of a sandbox game like Minecraft is how it gives you, the player, the ability to create meaning for yourself. Without this function, the movie naturally runs in circles talking about the importance of creativity, but the creativity on display really boils down to regurgitating a handful of items from the game, plus a tater-tot launcher, I guess. The movie's only message is about the power of creativity, but the creativity actually on display here is really, really minimal. I would go farther and say the film is almost afraid of creativity itself. In like 2 of the 3 Jack Black musical numbers, there is basically no choreography, but rather a series of reaction shots from the rest of the characters just cringing at Steve. And this isn't some sort of arc in the film where they learn to embrace Steve's creativity over time. Like, they like Steve, but this cringing continues straight to the end. The film seems almost ashamed of its own silliness. The counterexample that comes to mind here would be Barbie, another IP movie featuring the musical talents of Mark Ronson that acknowledges the absurdity of its world building. But when that movie does a ridiculous, tongue-in-cheek musical number, it has no shame in fully indulging in a highly choreographed extravaganza. It has no shame, in other words, of being creative. Minecraft movies don't have to be like a Minecraft movie. An adaptation of a beloved game or toy or anything else doesn't need to have Hollywood A-listers interacting with the given property in order for it to count as a legitimate movie. I think one of the most damning things about the film is how much actual creativity Minecraft itself has inspired over the years. It's incredibly accessible. There are independent films, YouTube series, and other multimedia Minecraft projects that are all more innovative and, yes, creative than a Minecraft movie. I really believe that you can make a better Minecraft movie right now. All that to say, I don't think that audience should have to settle for something like a Minecraft movie, even if we are all starved for reasons to go to the movie theater. So that's Minecraft. I am really excited to announce something of my own though, specifically that I am making more unscripted content with a podcast series called Midnight Musings. The first one is already up. I had a good time talking for almost half an hour about the upcoming Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival on Hulu. I go over where it could succeed, what I think the potential pitfalls are, and the tough spot they're being left in thanks to that final season of Angel. I plan on doing a lot more of those soon too. Like, I have some ideas to talk about both JRPGs and the Madden games here soon, and you can find it on Nebula, which I think will be a great venue to talk about things that I rarely touch on here. And of course, all my videos are already there, ad-free. That's just the tip of the iceberg too, because I'm there with channels like Nando V Movies, Lindsay Ellis, Hello Future Me, and so many more. That's because Nebula stands out as the boutique streaming platform for creators. It's offering a space where ad-free videos and unique projects thrive, often ones you won't find anywhere else. It's designed to be the go-to spot for both creators and viewers craving something fresh and creative. Like the new Abolish Everything, where you can see comedians roast their pet peeves brutally every episode. Right now, you can join and get 40% off. That's a year of Nebula for just $36 or $3 a month at go.nebula.tv/captainmidnight. Plus, you'll get guest passes to share for a week of access with friends or family, and you can grab this deal by scanning the QR code on screen or checking the link in the description or pinned comment below.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes, too.